Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan, and I'm delighted to welcome you back today after a short break. We took a 2-week break after 6 months and a year of intense work. I decided we definitely needed, and I needed that break, and especially after the Jerusalem conference. So it's fantastic to see you live again and to be back again live. Today as well, we have a double event for those of you joining live, where we're going to be having our weekly Monday Motivation Spotlight, which moves directly into our monthly Professional Women's Networking Forum. So if you're joining us live, please stay with us for both events. What we do and how we work is we're going to run through for 25 minutes till 9:25. We then have a 5-minute virtual coffee break, and we then move into our second half with a fantastic guest, Hannah Stadley, who I'll introduce a little bit later. Right now, though, we're on the Monday Motivation Spotlight, and I'm delighted, and I'm going to add her as a spotlight and replace myself. I'm delighted to welcome my friend and colleague. Yes, you look awesome. Everything's great. Your hat, your glasses, your lipstick. Welcome to Naomi Billauer. Whoever knows Naomi, she is vivacious. She's caring. She is just like always positive. I think I've never not seen her smiling. So who is Naomi Billauer? Firstly, I've had the privilege of knowing Naomi for a couple of years. We met just not post-COVID, when COVID started, where I started a mastermind group for women in business, and Naomi was part of that group and is still part of the group. Naomi is an educator. She teaches English, Hebrew. She works with kids through to adults. And she does it with passion, and she does it with humor. So Naomi, please, I'm delighted to have you here today. Please share with us your story, pro-Aliyah, you're making Aliyah, anything you'd like to share with us. Tell us about yourself, about what you do for the next 25 minutes. Go for it. Delighted to have you. And just 1 minute before you start, everyone else, if you can please be on mute. The second half, you will be able to take yourselves off mute. Although this is not the official networking forum, you're welcome to write your details in the chat and to network via the chat, and also to ask Naomi any questions or to comment on anything that she says. Naomi, shoot, take the floor.
Good morning, Boker Tov, Boker Or. Thanks for joining. So, I do. The name of my business for nearly 5 years, Learn with Confidence. And my focus is teaching language acquisition, making it accessible, both Hebrew and English, to those who may not previously have been exposed to Hebrew or to language, because it's also English, as I said, and also those who are challenged in the learning processes. I use all kinds of tricks, techniques, riddles, and music incorporated into my lessons. The students who I teach are ages 3 through adults. My 3-year-old, I teach 15 minutes of Hebrew to per week for a year. He's going to be 4, God bless. And I have people in high tech who write emails nobody can comprehend because they're in English, and I teach those skills. And the oldest student I have is the head of a critical care unit in one of the major Yerushalayim hospitals. Of course, she knows English. Can't become a doctor without knowing English. Medical world is the language of English. And she can explain anything she needs to regarding medicine, even the experimental drug that she represents. But if she needs to have a conversation in English, unfortunately, she becomes tongue-tied. I literally teach her, this is a table, this is not a table. Is this a table? I volunteer for a wonderful organization for wounded Chayalim, our holy wounded soldiers. I teach English for my student who specifically wishes to be overseas and tell his story. He's currently a guest of the Miami Beach Jewish community, together with other disabled of Israeli war veterans. And other students, other Chayalim, want to take this opportunity to learn English for university studies or for work opportunities. Growing up, Zionism very much emphasized love for Israel. In fact, I recall that as a child, if there was a program on TV about Israel and they played the Hatikvah, my parents would make my brother and I stand at attention in the living room. Yes. My parents were very supportive of my attendance for pro-Israeli rallies, certainly for the Salute to Israel Day Parade on Fifth Avenue, and for demonstrations in support of Soviet Jewry, either at the United Nations or in front of the Soviet Embassy on East 67th Street. 1, 2, 3, 4, open up the iron door. 5, 6, 7, 8, let my people emigrate. And then years later, I end up teaching English to Russian immigrants. What a high, like amazing. So both my parents were survivors of the Holocaust. My mother from Germany, my father from Poland. My mother was in forced labor for the Nazis. She was making bullets in their ammunition factory. Don't show up for work, you don't get a ration card. Bullets, yes, the irony, of course. And my father was on a forced march from Poland to Russia. On the third day, he witnessed his father, Avraham Turner, Zechrono Livracha, shot in front of his eyes. And my father's life was ultimately saved by a non-Jew. This non-Jew had been put into a successful business by my grandfather, who had made all kinds of suggestions and offered details which so increased his income and his visibility in the business world that I guess it can lead to saving that person's child. But not only my father was saved, but my aunt, my father's sister, when she escaped from Sobibor extermination camp, she went to the barn of this man, Mr. Marcinyuk, and there she was reunited with my father, who was hidden in the barn. She did not know he was there. He did not know she was coming, obviously. So yeah. My mom's philosophy was one of a smile is a gift you give for free. And I take that to heart. I never open up my camera to speak to my students without a welcoming smile. And it's always reciprocated. And it's a wonderful thing that my mom taught me. Also, what I noticed is that whenever my mother would be going to visit someone in the hospital, she would be putting on her makeup, her jewelry, this, and I'd say, Mommy, why you look like Shabbos today? I mean, what's going on? And she'd say, if I want to cheer someone up, I have to look well. They can't be worried about me and my situation or how I feel about the fact that they're not well. And I take that to heart as well. And I try to keep that in mind, because there are days that we really, especially those of us who have experienced the effects of this war, there are days we just don't want to. But if we put in that extra effort, sometimes mitoch lo lishma ba lishma, we don't mean to, but it just comes about anyway. And it ends up being good for us as well, that we put in that additional effort. My father's favorite time of the day was early morning, prior to the shacharit, the morning prayer service. He would learn Gemara, the oral law. And he used to, when I used to say, Daddy, why don't you just like stay in bed and sleep an hour longer? My father said, the morning hours are golden hours. My parents were my role models. I could never work as hard as my parents worked, not in my entire life. And my mom had survived cancer, both at 65 and at age 78, and they both died in their 90s. I studied in Jerusalem for 2 years. I returned to the States to study in college, where I majored in speech pathology and audiology. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, that's why you talk so much. No, actually, in speech pathology, you have to be a good listener. On campus, I became active in Yavna. Yavna was the religious Jewish students organization on college campuses around the United States and Canada. I became involved, became chapter president, and ultimately I became national president. I met Stephen Billauer, Zichrono Livracha, my husband, to whom I was married for 35 and a half years, as we both worked for 2 different companies on the same floor of a Manhattan office building. And my Stephen had been national president of the OU's NCSY, National Conference of Synagogue Youth. He was very community oriented, and as synagogue gabbai, sexton, he always gave the youth the opportunity to be involved in the care of the Torah and have them participate front and center in the shul. And many of them have told me at his shiva how much they appreciated having that opportunity, because other shuls don't allow them to do that. Stephen had the respect and the admiration of the community, and yet we understood that Aliyah was in our future. By day, as an elementary school teacher of English and of religious studies, Limudei Kodesh, I taught lessons to accommodate all kinds of learners in the spirit of inclusion. Patience, try to see, try to think through your students' view of what's going on. I do try to apply that as well to my clients' concerns. Some can't believe that I could possibly successfully teach their children via Zoom or FaceTime. And I explain in detail how my teaching differs from the Corona lockdowns. And it's sometimes the negative effects and the attitudes caused by online learning which raise these types of questions. In the evening, I was a continuing adult education instructor in the public school system, and I worked also as an adjunct professor of speech in the Department of New Americans at Touro College. In New York, I founded 2 businesses. The first one was Studious Pursuits. That's where I tutored children in the evening, primarily in reading and math, and in preparation for the New York State, Hebrew Regents exam on the high school level. Mitzvah in the Making was working in partnership with Stephen. We prepared girls and boys for their Torah reading and for their speech preparations, very often, most often, writing their speeches and teaching them how to present them so that people would listen. Often parents would ask, how did you get my kid to speak so clearly? And I would say, your son is ready to assist his future wife in Lamaze at the right time, because I use the breathing techniques that I myself learned through natural childbirth. And that's why your child was able to deliver the speech so clearly. Baruch Hashem, our wonderful children chose to study post-high school in Israel and to make Aliyah with their great husbands, choosing Alon Shvut in the Gush and Ma'alot Tarshicha on our northern border as their hometowns. Stephen was diagnosed with cancer. He was told he had 5 years. He lived an additional 16 and a half years beyond his diagnosis, and he was never in remission. He lived, this part will be uplifting, I promise you. It was 10 days before his passing. And he said to me, Naomi, have the doctors told you how long? I think we all knew what that meant because he was really deteriorating. But I don't know, it's like the teacher in me. And I said to him, how long until what? And he said, how long until I feel better? And that was my
Wow. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. So there were challenging times. My mom's 12 years of Alzheimer's at the end of her life, the loss of our home under 7.5 feet of water due to Hurricane Sandy, a once in 100-year storm, all while Stephen was in the midst of his chemo, and we had to live in 4 different locations until we could move back 8 months later to our rebuilt home, literally from the ground up. But I always considered myself a child of survivors, and I always felt somehow this will work out, we'll make it through. Hashem gives me the tools. May he be praised. Baruch Shemo. B'li Ayin Hara, I'm blessed with amazing children, family members, and friends without whose help I could never have successfully been able to make Aliyah. So here I am, having sold my house, arriving at Lud Airport, seeing my new 2-week-old granddaughter. Yeah, can you imagine if it was a boy and it was 2 weeks before Aliyah? Yeah, that would have been a little tricky to be at the bris. And 6 weeks later, our country is in full lockdown due to Corona. For 8 months, I never held, hugged, kissed, or coochie-cooed that new baby. It was heartbreaking and isolating. Enter Lesley Kaplan to the rescue. And of course, she's raising her eyebrows and saying, what do I have to do with this? Lesley was organizing a group of women whom she could guide into starting a new business in Israel. Wait, this woman must be prophetic. How could she possibly have known my situation? But there it was on the AACI, Americans and Canadians in Israel website, and she's writing this letter saying that this is what she's organizing. And I'm saying to myself, it looks and it feels like this is written to me personally. Like this woman is talking to me. I had friends in the States in the same profession, and they said, Naomi, don't take any materials with you. Find everything online. Don't schlep your stuff. I schlepped everything. And I'm using everything like I can't even believe it. So I think I always believed I wanted to, I knew I needed to, because I love teaching, that I would be involved in teaching. I didn't know how I'd get started. I don't know anything. But like I said, enter Lesley Kaplan. And so began a weekly meetup. All these women, amazingly talented women. I was like in awe. It was like a trip, but I don't mean a trip like Aliyah. I mean like another type of trip. Not saying I took anything. I'm not saying that. But anyway, each woman so well-versed in her own field. And yet, we didn't know how to let other people know what skills we have. And Lesley was able to hone all these things and teach us the path, the ways, and step by step. Oh my God, is she organized. I don't want to see her closet. I'm not interested. But in any case,
actually, you don't want to see my closet. Part of it's good, part of it's not.
So just the way that Lesley organized and slowly taught us, she didn't make us feel like we were nincompoops who didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about business because I worked in a community for so many years where people would sit at a Shabbat table at someone else's house and say, you know, I need a tutor for my, oh, Naomi Billauer. And Baruch Hashem, I would get a call, Motzei Shabbat or Sunday morning. I didn't know from having to look because people were coming to me. And here, suddenly, I'm in Israel, cut off from family, cut off from everyone. It was, we all remember what that was like. That was the tragedy before the war tragedy, right? And so it became my lifeline. Monday mornings at 9 o'clock, we were going to meet. And it's like an event, you know, it's like, there you are alone in your apartment, but you have an event to attend. It was wonderful. It was directed. It was warm, and we became great friends. And I just want to say, because God help me, I never forget this story. The first time we all met face to face, I've never had a scenario like that in my life. You know every person by name. You know who's married. You know everyone's marital situation. You know who has kids. You know what their field is. You know their strengths. You know their weaknesses. They know your strengths. They know your weaknesses now. And we're meeting for the first time and we're hugging like we're the oldest friends. It was the most amazing thing when Lesley organized that first time for us to meet when we were allowed to during Corona. And I'll never forget Simone. Simone looked at me and said, Naomi, I could have sworn you're taller. Thank you.
I remember that.
Thank you.
We need to start wrapping up, Naomi. We could listen to you literally for another hour. So if we could just start wrapping up, and you've been totally inspiring.
I'm finished.
You're finished? I think finished? I've never heard Naomi say before she's finished. Right? All right. Well, Naomi, firstly, we adore you. And I think everyone that's been in the room today can see why we actually adore Naomi Billauer. She is just so vivacious and just so passionate about everything that she does. And we totally, totally value you, and also professionally, you know, everything that you do, which is amazing, and just all the wonderful things that we've heard. So, Naomi, firstly, thank you so much for being a guest on our Monday Motivation Spotlight. For those of you that it's the first time perhaps that you've joined, I just want to remind you, or to tell you, that the Monday Motivation Spotlight was actually started during the war, when, actually at the very beginning of the war, when we decided, myself and I brought ACI on board, that we wanted to do something to inspire and to motivate us, and at the same time give a spotlight to women or men in business. The session is also open to men who were suffering a lot at the start of the war. And this is something that has been ongoing, and B'ezrat Hashem, the war will come to an end at some stage, and we plan to continue with this. So if you do see yourself as someone who has an inspiring story and would like to be a guest on my Monday Motivation Spotlight, please message me, email me, WhatsApp me, by social media, whatever you like. We'd love to have it and have you, and have stories like Naomi who inspire us. So thank you again, Naomi. Thank you again to our co-host, ACI. And if you've missed a lot of our previous recordings, you're welcome to also check them out on my YouTube channel and Spotify, and also to subscribe, and that way you can also see them coming up in your feed. So I'm going to officially end the recording for the Monday Motivation Spotlight, for those of you who are listening to the recording and not live, and I look forward to seeing you next week. But for those of you that are here, please stay tuned. So thank you again. I'm Yisrael Chai, and we wish our soldiers safety, and B'ezrat Hashem, the safe return of our hostages.